Yes, sir.
All right. It is, just at 2:05 PM. And I'm going to call the meeting of the, DuPage Police Records Management System Oversight Committee to order. And we have a roll call, please.
Berlin,
Here.
Yolowski,
Here.
Blumenthal,
Here.
Franz,
Here.
Gutman, Martinovich,
Here.
McPherson,
Here.
Moore,
Here.
Ritz, Scalera,
Here.
Walter,
Here.
Zerwin.
Armina representing Zerwin.
We have a quorum.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve, member Mark Franz, or Vice Chair, Franz online.
Yes, a quorum of the members is physically present, so we have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second. But just a voice vote, that's all we need to allow member France to participate remotely. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. That motion carries and welcome member France. Did we done with the roll call?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
all right. We, in the order of chairman's remarks, I just want to, again, thank everybody for being here today. It's really all I have. I know we got a few things to discuss, so in the interest of time, do we have any public comment?
No.
There being no public comment, we'll move on to approval of the minutes. Need a motion in a second?
So move. Second.
Scalera,
Pulaski.
Scalera, Pulaski. Voice vote? You could, we do a voice vote?
Yeah.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes are approved and okay, we'll move on to our action items. All right, our first item is a resolution for approval of milestone number 2, a monetary milestone upon completion of task server software staging, in the amount of $71,021, and also milestone number 5, upon completion of task on-call records and MFR Delta workshops in the amount of $17,755 in accordance with PO 1914-0001 SERV between the DuPage County Emergency Telephone System Board and Hexagon Safety and Infrastructure, pending parent committee approval.
I'll move on that
All
item.
right, we have a motion,
Second.
Blumenthal, we have, McPherson, we have a second, any discussion?
Should we maybe ask for just some general background for, but I mean, Greg,
Probably
I
a
don't
good
know.
idea for an explanation.
Absolutely. This is, as part of the, Hexagon application upgrade. So the, server software staging was completed, I believe, in November of last year, and the Delta workshops, we completed the last one at the end of May, or at the end of April, I'm sorry.
Okay, so the contract that was already approved, this is just, okay, they completed that task,
Absolutely.
here's the bill, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Anybody have any questions, comments? Okay, roll call vote.
Berlin,
Aye.
Yolowski,
Aye.
Blumenthal,
Aye.
Franz,
Aye.
Gutman, Martinovich,
Aye.
McPherson,
Aye.
Moore,
Aye.
Ritz, Scalera,
Yes.
Walter,
Yes.
Zerwin.
Aye.
All ayes.
Okay, thank you, the motion carries. And we will move on to item number 6B, which is 25-1445, additional appropriation for the PRMS Operation Fund, Company 4000, Accounting Unit 5830, in the amount of $876,474.
I'll move.
We have a motion, Blumenthal. Second. We have a second, Sinowitz. Can we, well, obviously, discussion, but I think we need an explanation for what this is to.
I'm actually gonna ask for a little assistance on explaining
Okay.
this, because this is kind of at, the finance level, it's not really in my wheelhouse. I know I worked with, Tom Packard on this, as well as Sarah. I don't know if anyone wants to chime in and get it started.
Yeah, I can discuss this.
Thank you.
There's two pieces to the 876. Part of it is Delta Workshop. That normally PRMS is billed through like ETSB or DuPage and then pays 1 year in arrear. This contract is separate from that process, so it's being billed during the same cycle. That was not considered in initial budgeting for 2025. The other part of it, which is over 600,000, pull up the record on it, is for prior year billing of dues that was not initially eligible this year. That should have been budgeted for, but was not included in initial budget submission by PRMS.
So just to elaborate on that, the first part, is the Delta Works. It's the RFP contract, that's getting paid from the equipment replacement fund. The other part, I think the reason this appropriation was required is because we went into the FY 25 budget under the assumption that we were changing the funding model. If you recall, we discussed last year, and that was an approved change. And so our initial budgeting was done within sort of a self-contained PRMS model. And then in December of 2025, that was put on hold until the RFP is done. And so it wasn't necessarily that it wasn't included in the budget as much as it just needed to be moved over. Is that accurate?
Not quite, only because it's 1 year in arrear. So that would have been true for the current year for the double billing cycle that it's still possible. I will be done with that, but I'm not actually the person who does the budgeting for it, so I can't attest to the rationale. But I do know that 689,000 was prior year expenses accrued by DuPage that should be reimbursed this year as part of the billing cycle.
So it sounds like it was always intended to come over, but not budgeted, and this
That
is
is-
merely an account and a budget adjustment that we all do at our boards.
That is correct.
Good for me.
And that's what I wanted to clarify. So this was already in the equipment replacement fund, just wasn't appropriated, so we're encumbering it for a lack of better terms. So the money's there,
Yes.
it's already been there. Whereas with the 780, whatever that's changes for the paying back of last year, that money was collected, it's sitting in our fund balance, it was just never appropriated. So we're doing this to just clean up the accounting side. Is that a fair assessment of all of these?
This will permit it so that we can actually do the paying of county and ETSB for the billing that was collected. Well, that's in the process of being collected this year.
Perfect. And I want to just reiterate one thing that I remember is, so traditionally the PRMS fund takes the money in, and then that PRMS fund refunds the county's general fund account, which pays for the salaries of the individuals assigned to DuPage.
That's
So that's what this is. It's making the accounting whole again to what our process has been.
Yeah, I believe that's Don's point, is that we were thinking of moving the salaries over this year, which is where the issue came.
I appreciate you all phrasing that more eloquently than I did.
Any other questions, comments? Mark. Member France, yes.
Yes, thank you. Maybe this is a good opportunity then. We're getting into the budget cycle for next year to refresh it, not today, but at our next meeting or along with the budget, to kind of spell out when these payments are supposed to be made and how, so we can have some kind of cheat sheet as we go into another fiscal year.
Yeah, agree. We can do that. So in August, we'll have a special call to present the 2026 budget to the committee, and we can address those items during that presentation, so during that meeting.
Thank you.
Anybody else? You roll call, right? Okay.
Berlin,
Aye.
Bielowski,
Yes.
Blumenthal.
Yeah.
Franz,
Yes.
Batman, Martinovich,
Aye.
McPherson.
Aye.
Moore,
Yes.
Ritz, Scalera,
Yes.
Walter,
Yes.
Zerwin.
Aye.
All ayes.
Okay, motion carries. Move on to item number 7. These are discussion items only. And we'll start with the update on the RFP process.
Chair, I'm gonna defer to, Don, who's gonna
Okay,
cover both
Don.
items.
Okay.
He's the PM for
and the-
both, and I asked him to cover both.
And the MFR OCR 10 upgrade, they may overlap, so
Absolutely.
feel free, Don. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So the RFP is moving along as scheduled. I just received the draft RFP yesterday, doing a cursory review, and then it's going to be sent to our steering committee to to review it, and then we need to assemble a small evaluation team who is going to be responsible for reviewing the proposals. We expect the RFP to be out on the street toward the end of June with a 6 to 8 week window for proposals. That puts us into mid to late August. And then we'll start the demo cycle, and we're on track to complete the project right around the end of the year.
Anybody have questions about that? Sounds like we're making progress.
All right, so for the MFR OCR 10 upgrade, that is also on track. We completed essentially the staging phase, and we're into the configuration stage, which will be followed by testing and then deployment. So right now, a lot of the work being done is being done by our team, just configuring the product. We've had most of our work groups, or our user groups, have had exposure to both products at this point, and everything's on track. We expect to go live the first week of November.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, please.
I'm sorry, just Don clarifying. So when you said that the end of the year will complete the project, meaning what? That we'll have a vendor selected?
Yes.
Got it. Thank you.
Can I make a point of clarification that?
Yeah, please.
So at the end of the process, the RFP steering committee will make a recommendation to the oversight committee. Oversight committee will make the final, will approve the final solution or not. Right. So just want to be clear on that. All we're going to do is wrap up the information, comment presented to you, make a recommendation, and then the oversight committee has to approve it or deny.
You're putting all that pressure on us, huh, Anthony?
Just want to make sure we're clear on the process.
All the heavy lifting will have been done before that.
Right, yeah.
Right.
Anyone have questions about the timeline or process? Okay.
Did we, you want to talk about the lack of participation or leave that for later? It's completely up to you.
I'll just say, I mean, as part of the RFP process, the review, once we get all the proposals in, we need to assemble a committee that's going to review all those, and make a short list, and that's going to require some time and effort. And it's important to have people on that committee who are going to be using this. So, we get a real honest assessment from the people on the street. So it's something I know I'm going to speak to all the chiefs of police about, to try and identify, just a few individuals to really help us out on this committee. Again, because it's the users at the end of the day who have to deal with the system who are affected most by it. So that's something, I know I've committed to, and I'm pretty confident we'll be able to get a group. Okay,
Can I add?
sure.
Sure. So just want to add, we brought this to Chair Berlin's attention this week, I think yesterday, we spoke about it, but wanted the committee to be aware of the fact that we've reached out to all 31 of the agencies and requested participation and received no responses. So that is a concern of ours. If we're not able to get at least, what do you need, Don? 6 people, 7? 6 or 7 people to participate in this process, we can't really move it forward, right? And so just letting you all know as the Oversight Committee, that's a challenge, but Chair Berlin has again agreed to step in, help us out, to reach out to the police agencies. And I'm gonna look at the sheriff's office because you're the biggest group. You're looking for maybe someone from your team to help out, but.
I think Dan Billadu would love this.
I definitely want to underscore the importance of this group being people who actually use the system, right? Can't be you, can't be me, can't be the chiefs. It's the folks who go in, input information, get information from the system, print reports. They have to know what they want. They have to review the proposals. They're gonna have to look at the actual products and make a decision. So that's what we need as part of this process, but we don't get that participation, we can't really move things forward. So we really need to get participation.
Thank you for bringing that up. That's important though.
Okay, any old business?
Do we wanna, I mean, I know August we're intending to do it. Do we just wanna say kind of a date we're tentatively looking at in case anybody here wants to just tentatively mark it, or if we're not there yet, I get it.
So anytime, we can pick a date if you want to today. So the reason why we're pushing off the presentation for the budget until August, because PRMS is part of the IT department and our budget isn't due until June 27th. Then we will present to our tech committee in July. So, once that's approved by our tech committee, then we'll present the PRMS side of it to you guys in August. So any date in August, if there's a day that works better for the group, we can go ahead and schedule it now. But that's why we're waiting until August, because of those things that have to happen prior to.
It's fine. I didn't know if anybody has summer plans or anything. I was like, let's ask now, because quorum obviously is a big thing for us. So that's the only reason. I say maybe the 27th of August, but that's just my personal.
Is that a Wednesday?
It's a Wednesday, so it's a Wednesday like this, same time.
Works for me if it works for the rest of the crew.
Veterans Fair, but that's in the morning. So, Wednesday, August 27th? Okay. All right. Any new business?
I believe, there are 2 things that I'd like to bring up if possible.
Yeah.
One, there was a suggestion from ETSB, I spoke with Member Goodwin last week. For these milestones, we're gonna have several more throughout the contract. And she made a good point that it doesn't really seem to make sense for ETSB to make the payment and then wait for us to reimburse a year later. If we have these are contractual things, this is reasonably considered capital contingency. The suggestion is that we do budget transfers from PRMS, the Equipment Replacement Fund, just to pay these as they come in. I know it's not an item right now, but for milestones going forward, I would like to put an item on August agenda to make a decision about whether or not that's an acceptable way to make these payments. It just streamlines the process, and I think it makes it a lot easier for both us and ETSB.
And can I add, so
Yes,
to, Linda's email also mentioned that this is kind of the purpose of the Equipment Replacement Fund, so it made sense for us to take advantage of it. So, just want to throw that out there so the committee had that perspective, and it's not like we're doing anything different or something we shouldn't do. That's exactly what the Equipment Replacement Fund is for.
Yes.
And my lack of accounting the specifics of it. Is this something in next year's budget, we could just budget appropriately for this amount and just have it there, so when the bill comes in, we pay it right away, so we don't?
Well, this won't be a thing next year,
Oh,
right?
well, okay, so
we'll
everything
be-
will be in this year, my apologies.
Yep.
Okay.
This is all this year, so it's all part of the RFP process.
This is for the project upgrade.
Oh, project, I'm
The
sorry.
application upgrade, which is why the equipment replacement fund is a reasonable way to pay it. If it is already part of the upgrade.
Yeah, no, I misspoke when I said RFP, I meant the upgrade. So.
Anything else? Yeah.
I don't know if you want to lead off, Anthony, or the other way.
No, you go.
So this is more of a looking ahead. The RFP creates a potential risk in that many agencies have already expressed interest in Axon. And the risk that we see coming down the road is that if Axon's not selected by the RFP, there may be issues with, keeping the consortium together. And I wanted to bring this up just as a sort of awareness issue, just to make sure that we are kind of thinking ahead as to what might happen depending on which way the RFP goes. Because a lot of the sentiment that led to kicking off the RFP when we did, it was very sort of, I don't know how to put it, except aside from it was sort of an emotional situation where people kind of got, they latched onto this idea of changing. So in the event that something like Hexagon is selected in the RFP, that creates, not to be dramatic, a slight existential risk for the consortium itself. And I just think it's a good idea for us to have a contingency plan in that event, because if the RFP results in the consortium changing drastically, I would rather have plans than just wait until it happens.
Yeah, and this is something that may not be an issue, but we thought that it made sense not to wait to bring it to your attention as our oversight committee, but to try to be proactive, right? You as managers have a better, we're assuming have a better sense of whether people want to leave or not. And if it is an issue, really an issue, we need to have a plan in place to address it. So afterwards is all we want to make sure that, we talk about, we plan as a committee. Any thoughts? And some of this, give you a little bit of background, we have a regular meeting with the police chiefs, the command group, and that was some of the insight that they brought to our attention, is that they believe that there are agencies just waiting to find out what's going to happen in the RFP process, and they're not willing to commit to anything, or they don't know what they're going to do until that happens, and they may decide to go in a different direction if it's not the solution that they want.
I'll speak on the record. I sort of thought that was sort of the path forward anyway, where it was, we're certainly not gonna pick Axon out of a hat today. We haven't even released the RFP, but the feedback I get being on this committee is, either the consortium will exist as an Axon function, or it will not exist at all. So I'm not surprised to hear that at all, that we might not have a consortium. I think that's good to bring up, but I also think that's premature to say that we won't make the right decision. I'm not suggesting we won't or will, but I think that was already pretty foretold already. That's part of why this is a sensitive RFP process and why some of those meetings at like DMC occurred. Because for whatever reason, there wasn't communication about what the plan was on going to something else. Maybe something else is not Axon. We have an idea of what's out there, but we don't fully know everything. But I think that's what a lot of us are already thinking already, is there will be a fork in the road and we'll have to take it. So none of that is that surprising to me personally. I'm just speaking for myself. My chief has told me to my face that, when are we moving to an excellent product? And I say when the time's right. Not before, not after. So again, I appreciate all that, but I don't think any of that is news to the average DuPage community. One of my questions was gonna be, do we have any update on the Oak Brooks, Downers Groves, et cetera, of the world who either have attempted to leave? Hanover was a candidate who was thinking about leaving. So one of my questions was, how stable is the consortium between now and can we even get to the end of the RFP process to have a good consortium together?
Yeah, I have not heard from any of those organizations. I have heard that both Downers and Oprah are moving forward, but we have not heard from any of the other agencies, unless Don, you've heard something. We've not heard from any of them. A little contrary to your comment, I didn't think that that was the understanding moving forward. I thought the understanding moving forward was we're one consortium. And a product doesn't make us a consortium. The ability to be a consortium, to share data, to work across the board is what's way more important than a solution. So whatever solution we select, and collectively as a group, we're gonna move forward with it, was the impression I was under, and unless that's changed. It's fine either way, we are heading down that path. We're gonna go through this process. We're gonna be as honest and thorough as possible. We're gonna pick the best solution based on what folks want. And whoever wants to stick with the consortium will, and who wants to go their separate ways will go their separate ways. But I think it is important to remind people, and I'm definitely not trying to lecture any of you guys, and definitely not law enforcement, but the strength in what we do is the consortium, the ability to share data, have that data in one source. And no matter what happens, either in real time, officers can look across the board and see real-time data that have crossed different territories or boundaries, or they have the ability to investigate things using that same data. And you lose that when you break a consortium up, but yeah. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, Member France, please.
Thank you. Just to follow up, and I've missed the RFP committee before this meeting, but are one of the tasks that we're trying to pull together and eventually sharing with this group would be the score sheet of the vendors, so that we can maybe have some feedback and input on how we're going to be evaluating whoever submits a application, and thereby allowing us to kind of guide the process in terms of selection.
Well, so the purpose of the evaluation committee and the RFP steering committee is to do just that.
Okay.
If we have to bring it back to the oversight committee, that would mean that it would take this process so much longer, right?
No, I'm not advocating that, but just to make sure we're all in agreement as much as possible on what the criteria is for deciding who the best vendor is. I think that's
the evaluation committee and the steering committee will help make that decision. So if you're part of that, those meetings we have regularly, you'll weigh in on it. You'll weigh in on the RFP. One of the things we talked about in the meeting before this was the steering committee meeting, was that Don's going to get the RFP out to that committee first thing next week for you all to review and give input.
good. Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, motion and second, Jim? Motion. Second. Motion and second. We are adjourned until August 27th. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Oh.